John Rothmann on KGO 810 and streaming online at KGOradio.com. Join the conversation at 8080-810. Now, John Rothmann on KGO 810.
I am John Rothmann. We enter the third and final hour of our program tonight. And I have to tell you, I am on the faculty of the Fromm Institute at the University of San Francisco. We had a faculty meeting last week. And who was there but David Seaborg, who teaches at the Fromm. And he handed me his card. And he said, I'd love to come on your radio program. Well, what he didn't know is I'm delighted to have him on my program. David Seaborg is the founder and president of the World Rainforest Fund. He is an evolutionary biologist. He has a long resume, which I have here, has been involved in the issues of global warming and the environment for most of his life. And to answer the question that everybody is going to ask, is he Glenn Seaborg's son? The answer is yes. So now that we've dispensed with that, we're okay. So let me ask you, David, because global warming is a big issue. The Trump administration is a big issue. The first question is, how serious is the problem of global warming?
John, it's very, very serious. The scientific data is in a very big way, and it isn't a matter of being uncertain anymore. There's scientific consensus of this. In fact, one scientist just looked at the number of papers published on climate change and global warming by meteorologists and experts on climate change and looked at 957 papers. And how many of them said global warming is a problem and we're sure of it and it's going on now? The answer is all of them. There were no dissenting papers. And one of the big problems is, what if the ice glaciers in the Himalayas melted? Those glaciers give water to 7 rivers. The Ganges River in India, Yellow River and Yangtze River in China, 7 rivers that support over 2 billion people in China, Bangladesh,
2
Pakistan,
billion with a B.
Over 2 billion with a B. People in India, China, Bangladesh, Pakistan, Vietnam, and so on. Now, if global warming continues and the glaciers in the Himalayas melt, the Himalayas include Mount Everest, which will happen if current trends continue. That's if we don't do something about this. They'll all be melted in about 40 or 50 years. There'll be no water for over 2 billion people. Also think about the cities that will go underwater for 2 reasons. First is the polar ice caps in the Arctic and Antarctic, also in Greenland, will melt and the sea level will get higher. But also water becomes takes up more volume as you heat it. And for that reason, Miami actually is already often underwater. It's already happening to Miami, but it's going to happen to San Francisco, Los Angeles, Bangladesh, and several, certainly London, and several of the islands in the Pacific Ocean.
So I want to understand something, and I want 415-808-0810. You can call and ask David any question you want. I have callers who call me consistently and who say, this whole thing is fake. And, of course, Donald Trump says this is all something that came out of China. It's not true. The federal government basically is saying global warming or climate change is not a problem. How do you answer that? How do you answer it rationally?
Well, you have to educate people on the science, and you have to have people look at facts and see that facts matter. And I think that now people do agree that there is climate change, pretty much everyone, but the deniers claim that humans don't cause it. But the science is there now.
Explain. Okay. What is the science? Is it a natural progression which happens over the centuries or decades or millennia?
No, it's not nature because, you see, before the Industrial Revolution, there were 280 parts per million of carbon dioxide, CO2, which is the main global warming gas in the atmosphere. Now, when we drive cars or burn fossil fuels, or run industry burning coal, oil, or heat our homes with that, we put this carbon dioxide, CO2, in the air. It is actually now over 400 parts per million, and the climate, the Earth, is warming as a result. Now, the reason it warms because of carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases, that's not the only one, but carbon dioxide's the main one, is because the sun's rays come to the Earth, heat the Earth, and then they radiate out as heat, and we lose some of the heat, which we need to do to control our temperature. But carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases trap that heat, which is infrared radiation, and that's why the Earth is warming. And carbon dioxide has always been in the atmosphere, but at much lower levels than humans, after humans have come and made it more.
So we are in part responsible.
Yes.
Now, let's think logically. I want to do this very logically. Number one,
Right.
You're saying it's absolutely true that global warming, climate change is happening. Number two, you are saying that, in fact, without a doubt, human beings are in part responsible. And in fact, they've escalated the changes.
Right.
Number three, then, what can we do to mitigate it? Is it too late? What do we have to do?
And I'm also saying it's very serious and it's already started, but it's not too late. We can do things about this. We can solve this problem. This is America. We went to the moon. We need a crash program as big as our program in the past going to the moon. We need to get our priorities straight and go after this problem in a big way, declare it as a national emergency. What we need to do is get out of cars, reduce the number of cars, and get on BART and into public transportation. And that means we need a tax on gasoline. We need to make BART free. We need electric cars, but and that way we can keep our cars. But if they're electric cars, they must be powered by solar, wind, and renewable energy.
Wait. I've got to ask you. I drive an electric car.
Yeah.
I drive a Nissan Leaf.
Right.
I'm very proud of the fact that I feel I'm doing something constructive.
Yeah.
Am I?
Yes, you are, because yours is probably where you are is probably powered by renewable energy. Now, what we need to get away from for electric cars and all of our power is fossil fuels. Coal is the worst. Coal emits the most greenhouse gases. We need to get away from that the most. And we need to convert from oil, gas, and coal to heat our homes and run our industry over to solar, wind, bioenergy, geothermal, and other renewable energy. Now, that means we should not forget these people who are the coal miners and have jobs. We should retrain them and give them good jobs not like coal that give them black lung disease, but healthy jobs. We should not leave these people behind.
Now, let me ask you this. I mean, this is fascinating. 415-808-0810. Let's assume we do everything that you are suggesting.
Yeah.
Including recycling.
Right.
Including all the things we do. But
right.
What about India? What about China? What about the rest of the world?
A good question. So if we do everything, we will have a huge impact. Make no mistake about that. America is the biggest emitter of greenhouse gases and very powerful country and can have a huge impact. But we also need to bring China, Britain, India along. And that's why the Paris Climate Agreement is so crucial and a good step in the right direction because it's an international agreement. And Trump made a huge mistake pulling us out of that because we need to bring the other countries along by treaty and get them on board. Now, Paris, the climate agreement, the Paris Accord is a good step. It's not enough. We need more and stronger agreements and commitments. We need to bring along through the carrot and stick all these other countries, Germany, Britain, Russia, China, and India, as well as Brazil. Those are the big key ones. That means we need Brazil to preserve its rainforest, because when you cut the rainforest, then the trees, when they're standing, they take carbon dioxide out of the air and produce oxygen. But when you cut or burn a tree, you add carbon dioxide to the air. So we need to commit some money to tropical third world countries that are poorer than us so they can do this.
That was
so
my next
international
question.
treaties.
My next question had to do with the rainforests. You are the president of the World Rainforest Fund.
Yes.
I know you raise money prodigiously, and I'm going to ask you later where people can send contributions. When you heard about the rainforests in Brazil burning and being burned evidently by the government for more land, in part.
Yeah, farmers.
How do we respond to that? What should we be concerned about? After all, those rainforests are a long way away.
They're a long way away, but rainforests contain half of the world's species that live on land. So when you cut the rainforest, you destroy the habitat of monkeys, of birds, lizards, butterflies, and bees, of course, and of course the orchids and flowering plants. Half of the world's species are in the rainforest. So we are undergoing an extinction crisis now. That also is real. And the loss of these species is very important because they are a source of half of our medicines. Medicines that cure cancer, cure heart disease, protect the brain. They're anti-malaria, anti-fungus medicines that prolong human life that come from the rainforest. In fact, childhood leukemia is essentially cured by 2 alkaloids from the rosy periwinkle in the rainforest in Madagascar off Africa. Also, the rainforest is a great controller of climate because, like I say, the trees of the rainforest pull out the main greenhouse gas, carbon dioxide, and make global warming better. But if you cut or burn a tree, you add carbon dioxide from the tree's trunk and leaves into the air and make climate change worse. Also, these mega dams that destroy rainforests by flooding it, which we see in Brazil and Borneo, they kill the trees by covering them with water. Well, when you cover a tree with water, no oxygen can get to the tree. Therefore, a different microorganism breaks it down than the ones that break it down when there's oxygen. So these release methane into the atmosphere. Methane is 30 times as powerful a greenhouse gas as carbon dioxide, molecule for molecule. Further, when you cut rainforest and make ranches for cattle by growing grass, the cattle are producing methane, this potent greenhouse gas.
My guest is David Seaborg. He is the founder and president of the World Rainforest Fund. He is an evolutionary biologist. And by the way, you got your degree at Davis, where my son went to school as well. So let me ask you another question along these lines. What is it that Donald Trump and his Environmental Protection Agency, his administration, why don't they understand the facts? Why don't they accept the science? Why do they believe this whole thing is, in the president's words, a hoax?
Well, I can only speculate because I don't know what goes through the president's mind, but his appointees for what is supposed to be environmental protection have been industry lobbyists. He said he'd drain the swamp. That's a promise he definitely broke because instead of draining the swamp of the lobbyists, he has appointed industry lobbyists to environmental protection, supposed to be protecting the environment. The people he appointed did not. And so I think his closeness to industry, to the fossil fuel industry, and to moneyed interest is the reason these people and Donald Trump prefer to deny this. I think Trump is a lot more interested in money, money, money. He doesn't have much interest in the natural world or biodiversity or climate.
My guest is David Seaborg, and let me get to some calls before we have to take our first break. Let me go to Dennis, calling from Vacaville. Dennis, welcome to KGO.
Hi. I've got kind of two things on my mind, but I think China has given us a wonderful example of how to control the population or reduce the numbers of people, which would reduce the amount of resources we consume and the waste that we wind up with. And I think we might consider, one or two children per families as a limit.
What do you think about population control, David? Is that?
I think Dennis has a great point. We have over 7 billion people in the world, a doubling time of about 40 years.
Wait, 40 years from now, we will have 14 billion people?
Yes, but let me be careful with that figure because that is rapidly changing. So it's not a sure thing because population growth rate is going down. However, it could be 14 or it could be 10 or 12, but it is still going up. It's just the rate of change is going down. So whether it'll be 14 or not, we've got too many people and too rapidly a growing population for the Earth to be able to sustain us. So we definitely need to control population. I applaud China for their limitation of the growth rate. I think it was a good thing. I think there were problems with it, but it's something that was needed. And we need in the United States incentives to control population. I think we need sex education in our schools and birth control readily available.
Dennis, I hope you got the answer, and I appreciate your call. We got to take a break. People are calling, and this is great. 415-808-0810. For those of you who have called me in the past to say that climate science is bogus, is wrong, please pick up the phone because you have an expert sitting here in the studio. And David Seaborg is the founder and president of the World Rainforest Fund. And we're going to give you an opportunity later to explain how people can get more information and contribute. I am John Rothmann, and you are listening to KGO.
Now more of John Rothmann on KGO 810.
John Rothmann with you right here on KGO. My guest is David Seaborg. He is the president and founder of the World Rainforest Fund. Marilyn asks a question. Originally from northern Minnesota, can renewables deal with the very cold winter climates well? I believe oil was commonly used for heating. What do you think?
Yes, renewables such as solar and wind can deal with heating homes even in cold climates. Yes.
So my solar panels are a good idea?
Yes, definitely.
Okay, glad to hear it. I want you to say a word. I'm going to put in a caller, and then we'll go on. Believe it or not, when we get back from the break, all your calls. But David is teaching a course, and we were just talking about extinction. What happens if we become extinct? But we'll get to that. Let's go to Alex calling from Hayward. Alex, welcome to KGO.
Hi. Today I learned from a podcast, The Cycle of Mind, and there's only like 9. It's a new podcast, and I'm not in favor of anybody, Trump or this isn't a political call, but he relates this to an article in Politico recently that the Amazon rainforest suddenly started amping up its fires because of Donald Trump. And I don't mean to bash on Trump, but he used these facts, and you can go to the podcast. It's a short one. But he says that what happened with all these tariffs they put on China with the soybeans, well, that automatically, and we've heard all that in the news about the soybean farmers being pushed out. And he explains further that China said, okay, well, that's fine. This has been going on for a while, and you're an insane man. There's no dealing with you. You have to win, or there's no talking with you. So they said, fine. So they went to Brazil. So now they're buying all their soybeans, and that's an up-and-coming thing. And soybeans are big with the Asians, of course. And it's starting to increase with us. But by the time we catch up with our production, those farms are going to be out of business.
Well,
what he says.
What do you have to say? How do you answer that?
So if I understand this right, you're saying, Alex, that because of the tariffs by Trump, China had to turn, because they're not getting our soybeans, they had to turn to Brazil for soybeans and therefore more burning and destruction of rainforests
Precisely.
to grow soybeans.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I don't know about that. I will. That's a very interesting point. I know the president of Brazil, Bolsonaro, has a very similar attitude toward rainforest and nature and climate as Trump. He's very anti-environment, and he is not concerned about saving rainforest.
That's clear. Can you ask your fine guest, this is Rob's question, to explain two graphs showing the Earth has been relatively recently much warmer than today. From the book Inconvenient Facts, the science that Al Gore doesn't want you to know. The medieval warm period happened, the Greco-Roman warm period happened, both to the benefit of humankind and both warmer than today. And he's suggesting that we are alarmists. Go ahead.
Well, that is wrong for one reason. There is now consensus among scientists that global warming is real. It's a problem. It's a bad thing, and it is caused by humans. But it is true that in the past there were natural periods of warmer times. However, the very, very warm period at the end of the Permian was the biggest mass extinction in the history of the Earth because it was so hot. Now, the thermal maximum that happened about 55 million years ago was a slower event, but it did cause a lot of dying off. The end Permian extinction that had the great warming of 252 million years ago was due to volcanoes sending carbon dioxide, the main greenhouse gas, into the air, and that made it so hot that it melted the frozen methane hydrates in the sea. And I told you methane is 30 times as powerful a greenhouse gas as carbon dioxide. So the heat from the volcanoes of the carbon dioxide set off, melted the methane into the air, and made it very, very hot, and 70% of things in the sea died, and much over 50% of things on land died. It was this global warming was the biggest mass extinction in the history of the planet. It's true, climate fluctuates, but when it fluctuates too much, it kills things off, and we are sending it into a new phase that's too warm.
My guest is David Seaborg. When we come back, we will continue the discussion, and I'm going to ask you a question when we come back, and that is about extinction. I'm very interested in that. All right, 415-808-0810. I am John Rothmann, and you are listening to KGO.
Now more of John Rothmann on KGO 810.
John Rothmann with you right here on KGO. My guest is David Seaborg. He is the founder and president of the World Rainforest Fund. Two questions before we go to the calls, and we've got so many people. First, the implications of what would happen if the rainforest vanished.
Okay, if the rainforest vanished, we would lose all these medicines that cure cancer, heart disease, and help with the brain, help with longevity. We would lots and lots of products you use every day come from the rainforest. Toothpaste, gels, soaps, all kinds of things come from the rainforest. A lot of the house plants come from the rainforest. Food for our crops that we need. You see, crops that you grow for food, such as rice, need to have variety, new varieties put into them, because if they don't, insects, fungus, and disease, viruses can kill the crops. So you need some new varieties to put in that's resistant to the diseases and the insects that attack the crops. And if you don't keep up with the changes in the diseases that wipe out the crops. So foods are coming from the rainforest, include coffee, bananas, mangoes, various tropical fruits, and vegetables. So food supply. We also get a lot of fish from the rivers of the Amazon and the rainforest. They also feed a lot of the local people there, and there are local farmers.
So they're essential. We can't afford to do without them.
But also I want to add that we need them for climate. They are absolutely essential for keeping the climate stable, because they help against global warming, but when you destroy them, you cut them or burn them, the carbon dioxide in them goes in the air and makes global warming worse.
Talk about extinction.
Well, if we keep going at the rate we are, right now there is a background normal rate of extinction. Okay, that happens. But due to humans, we are now sending species extinct at 1,000 to 10,000 times the background rate, this according to scientific studies. So humans are causing a mass extinction right now. There's actually a book called The Sixth Extinction that talks about this that your listeners can read. So, because it's called the Sixth Extinction because there were 5 natural extinctions before humans. So this is a mass extinction. If it continues, we're losing birds at great rate. We're losing insects, which we need to pollinate our flowers, our crops. Our food is pollinated by honeybees and other insects. We need bats to control insects and to disperse fruit in the rainforest. Those are going extinct. And half of the species are in the rainforest. So if this continues, humans won't be able to survive without the natural world because we need a stable climate. We need to be able to grow food. We need to eat. We're knocking out our ability to produce food as we change the climate and have the topsoil going off. That's precious stuff, our topsoil being eroded away. All the plastics in the ocean are destroying the fish life, the pollution.
So we really have a challenge. If we want to survive as a species for whatever time human life has left, we better get cracking.
Yeah.
All right, let me get callers on now.
Okay, but I do want to say if we go on like this, we will go extinct. But it's not inevitable. We can avoid that.
All right, let's go to Cliff calling from Willits. Cliff, welcome to KGO.
Thank you. My question is simple. I heard this gentleman speak from Silicon Valley. He was considered the bad boy of Silicon Valley. He said that he can turn all the cars into electric, and he can fill Death Valley up with solar panels and give everybody electricity, but he says, I'll destroy the earth in doing that. How would your guest respond to that?
Well, that's very interesting because if you put solar panels in good habitat in the desert that has animals like desert tortoises, you do destroy habitat. However, and solar, he has a good point because solar and wind are not completely benign. They have negative impacts on the earth. Anytime you produce energy, you will do something bad for the earth. However, it's not as bad as fossil fuels when you change the climate, and you can put the solar panels and the wind, you can make them in a way to minimize the environmental impact and put them in areas where the environmental impact is minimized. However, I think he has a good point because it means we need to conserve energy. The best thing for the economy and for the earth is conservation, not using the energy in the first place, because anytime you convert something into usable energy, obviously you have to make pollution. That's a result of the second law of thermodynamics. Now,
so whatever we do, let me just be clear, whatever we do, there are going to be negative effects.
Yeah, unless we conserve. So obviously conservation can't do it all because you need some energy. But the more we have energy efficiency, so we don't have to burn as much fuel, and the more we have energy conservation, just turn out the light bulb or have your heater on at 2 degrees lower and use a code in your house, walk or ride a bike, any of those things is the best.
All right, I hope that answered the question. 415-808-0810. Let me ask you, well, here's a great one, and it goes along with your father in a way, and plutonium. Let's go to Wilbur, who is calling from Berkeley. Wilbur, welcome to KGO.
Yeah, he may have answered my question with any energy source is still a problem. But I was wondering, can nuclear power, can we fix the problem with the plants but not to be a risk? Or is that a good source of energy?
Okay, that's a very good question. Nuclear power has the advantage that it doesn't produce as many fossil fuels. I mean, it doesn't produce as much greenhouse gases, such as carbon dioxide.
Mm-hmm.
So in that sense, it's more like solar and wind. However, nuclear power does, and also I should add that with the new generation of nuclear reactors, like thorium reactors, they're more benign.
What is a thorium reactor?
It's to make it very short. It runs on thorium instead of things like plutonium and uranium, and it actually is a more benign reactor, a safer reactor. However, nuclear power has the problem of waste, which lasts a very, very long time. Thorium reactors are better because they produce less of that. But the thing that worries me about nuclear power is the risk of rogue states and terrorists using it to produce nuclear weapons.
I hope that answers the question.
Yes, it did. Thank you.
Thank you, Wilbur. 415-808-0810. Let's go to Jim, calling from Concord. Jim, welcome to KGO.
Oh, hello. I just wanted to ask a basic question. What is for a middle-class American individual, what is the one most effective practice you can put into your lifestyle that would help this very troubling crisis?
Well, that's a good question, but I can't give you just one. I would say recycle as much as you can. Do not use plastic bags because plastics pollute the environment. So try to use reusable bags for your groceries, those kind of cloth canvas bags, the big ones, and use plastic, even the small plastic bags, as little as you can. Ride the BART and walk and use a bicycle and bus and stay out of your car as much as you can. When you run your air conditioner or your heater, keep them lower. The AC lower, less, and the heating less. Use a sweater in your house or apartment instead of turning up the heat. And keep the heater off at night. And also eat organic food. It will cost more, but it'll be, if you can afford it, or if you can't afford to eat all organic, eat as much as you can. It's better for the health anyway. And eat vegetarian, cut down on your meat.
Does that answer the question?
Yeah, I do all those things, and I'm just wondering if you have in your equation any type of political element as far as what we can do.
Well, I think that, this is just my opinion, and you can feel free to disagree, but if you want politics, I think that capitalism has the following problem. The corporations and the rich that are in power and can help, have a disproportionate amount of control through political donations and lobbying of what gets done. They are the same ones that have a vested interest in maximizing profit, which means doing things that are anti-environmental. In other words, controls on pollution cost the corporation more money, so they tend not to want that because they need to maximize profits. So I think that there is an inherent problem with capitalism that needs to be addressed in that the ones that have the political power through the economic power in the political system have a vested interest in doing the wrong thing for the earth.
All right, I appreciate your call. This comes from Rob. Kudos to David for conceding in the last 4,000 years of human history, it's been much warmer than today. But then he jumps back 300 million years to massive extinctions. no comparison to warming today. Why has CO2 never been a driver of climate change throughout Earth's history? And there is an 800-year lag. Temperatures go up first, natural variability, and 800 years later, CO2 rises. Do you recognize that, David? And the cause and effect is backwards as declared by the consensus of scientists. Why must the manipulated models rely on a gargantuan falsehood, false science?
The answer to that is the question is based on a false premise. They aren't relying on a falsehood. CO2 and temperature are correlated, and this has been studied very well, and CO2 goes up first before temperature, and we even know the mechanism of the greenhouse effect, that greenhouse gases stop and block the exit of infrared, which is warming. And the fact that I jumped back, which was 252 million years, was to show that, in fact, high CO2, in this case caused not by humans but by volcanoes, caused very high temperatures and caused mass extinctions. It was a jump just to give you an example of, yes, there is natural changes in the climate in the CO2, this time due to volcanoes, but it caused a big mass extinction. Now, when the Earth was cooled and made dark 65 million years ago, because an asteroid hit us, that also changed the climate. It caused it to be colder. So you can go there if you wish.
And the extinction of the dinosaurs, right?
Yeah, that killed the dinosaurs. So there was climate, non-human, colder from an asteroid, causing a mass extinction. But no, your premise is wrong if you think there's no correlation between carbon dioxide and temperature. And it isn't that temperature comes first, then CO2. That can happen because you can get feedback. That's true. For example, you warm the Earth, then you melt the permafrost up in the Arctic, and then you release more greenhouse gases. And from that warming, the warming originally caused by carbon dioxide or methane or both, then that warms the Earth, and then it melts the permafrost, and then it adds greenhouse gases, and it makes things warmer. But that is just more support for the science and that we have a problem. The fact that we can throw the system into positive feedback loops and make things worse. You can also warm the Earth, and if it warms too much, you melt the methane hydrates, and then you get methane 30 times as powerful as carbon dioxide into the air, and you warm the Earth in a very, very, very strong way. So
my guest is David Seaborg. He is the founder and president of the World Rainforest Fund. We have a question about rainforests coming up, and I'm also going to ask you how we get in touch with you. And if people want to contribute, what's the money going for? I'm John Rothmann, my guest David Seaborg, right here on KGO.
Now more of John Rothmann on KGO 810.
John Rothmann with you here on KGO. My guest is David Seaborg. David, I want you to explain, you're the president and founder of the World Rainforest Fund. What does that do, and how do people contact you? And do you accept contributions?
Yes, we do. So what we do, the World Rainforest Fund empowers the indigenous people, the Indians of the rainforest, to help them save their rainforest. We do preservation of rainforests this way because 2 scientific studies showed this is the best way to do it. It saves the most rainforest per dollar, and it also has the most traction. It saves rainforest in the most lasting way. So if you just make a national park, often there's not enough money for guards to protect it, and people go in and shoot the animals, cut the trees, burn the trees anyway, whereas the indigenous people live there. They fight really hard to save their rainforest. They really want to save it. You just empower them with a grant, then you get them radios and you get them help. They can then save the rainforest.
What's your website?
Okay, our website is worldrainforest.org, and you can go there and donate to us. And you can also send, if you want to donate to us, you make the check to World Rainforest Fund, and you mail it to World Rainforest Fund, 1888 Pomar Way, Walnut Creek, California, 94598. That's 1888 P like Peter, O, M like Mary, A-R Way, Pomar Way, Walnut Creek, 94598. We did set the record for saving the most species per dollar when we saved a 10,000-acre rainforest in Ecuador that had the highest species diversity in the world, according to the Missouri Botanical Garden, the most species per acre, and we saved it for just $3,500. So we are very, very strict about who we give the money to and how we use it to maximize the saving of rainforests. We have stopped dams in Borneo. We've saved a lot of rainforest in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, where the bonobo chimp, which is the species most related to humans, lives.
Fascinating. Now, our time is up, but I want you to give the address once more, slowly, so people know how to reach you at the World Rainforest Fund.
The website is worldrainforest.org, and they can donate on the web, or they can send us a check to the World Rainforest Fund. It's all tax deductible. We'll send you a tax deductible letter, and that will send it to World Rainforest Fund, 1888 Pomar Way, P like Peter, O, M like Mary, A-R Way, W-A-Y, Walnut Creek, California, 94598. Thank you for having me, John.
Oh, Dave, my pleasure. We're going to put that up on the website. By the way, it's a privilege for me to serve on the faculty of the Fromm Institute with David Seaborg. And we're going to have you back, David. This is not the last time you're going to be here. To those of you who are holding on, and I really am sorry we didn't have time. We ran out of time. But don't worry. We'll have another opportunity. I want to say a big thank you, if I can, to our wonderful engineer, Karen Reed, who does such a great job, and to Lynn Sloan. Lynn, bravo. And to all of you for participating. I will be back here Monday night, 6 o'clock. Heaven only knows where the world will be then. I'm John Rothmann, and you are listening to KGO.